I'm Christy. I was standing in my parents' opulent mansion in the Hamptons, surrounded by 37 family members who had gathered to celebrate my nephew Leo's high school graduation. Just moments ago, my phone rang, and the caller ID read Princeton University, Office of the Dean. The room fell into a deathly silence as I answered the call. "This is Dr. Christy," I said. The voice on the other end was crisp and urgent. "Dr. Christy, this is the Dean's office at Princeton. We need you here immediately. The breakthrough announcement in astrophysics cannot proceed without your approval, and the media is already swarming." I could feel 37 pairs of eyes fixed on me. As I listened to the voice explain that the astrophysics research I'd been leading had achieved a breakthrough worth over $10 billion in potential economic impact and had the potential to rewrite our understanding of the universe, I calmly replied, "I understand. I'll be on the next flight to New Jersey. Please have my assistant reschedule the NASA meeting for Thursday and ensure the funding documentation from the NSF is ready for my review." I ended the call and looked around the room. My sister, Lily, who had been holding a glass of champagne, dropped it. The glass shattered on the marble floor, but the sound was barely noticeable compared to the shock on everyone's faces. Lily's face had gone completely pale. She stammered, But you teach at a community college." It came out as a question, as if she was desperately hoping that the world she knew was still intact. I smiled politely and said, "I volunteer there one evening a week, teaching basic astronomy to adult learners who are working towards their GEDs. They're truly remarkable students, more motivated than some of the Princeton undergrads." My cousin, Max, who had just finished his first year at Yale's business school, had frozen mid-sip. His self-assured expression had vanished. He looked at me in disbelief and whispered, "Holy. I mean, Dr. Christy, it says here that you've revolutionized the field of astrophysics, and major space agencies are vying for licenses to your patents." My Aunt Rose, who was always quick to offer her opinion, was scrolling through news articles on her phone. "There's a Forbes piece about the 25 most influential scientists under 35. You're number 5. She exclaimed. My father, who had always been quiet during these family gatherings, was staring at his phone screen. "Christy, it says here that you gave a TED Talk that has 20 million views about the applications of astrophysics in interstellar travel." I nodded. That was a few years ago. The technology has advanced a great deal since then. My uncle, George, a successful corporate executive, was reading a Princeton press release. "It says you're leading a research team of 50 scientists and that your lab has secured over $300 million in federal funding. And you're the youngest person ever appointed to lead such a major astrophysics research initiative at Princeton." As I stood there, I couldn't help but recall how this all started. It all began at this very family gathering, which was supposed to be a celebration of Leo's graduation but quickly turned into a dissection of my career. Lily had always been the confident one in the family. She adjusted her Gucci scarf and, with a tone that was both caring and condescending, said, "Let's be realistic, Christy. Not everyone is cut out for serious academic work. You've always been the practical one in the family." Max, sitting back in his chair with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged, chimed in, "Lily's right. I've seen the level of intellectual rigor required at top-tier institutions. It's not for everyone. No offense, Christy, but teaching at a community college is nothing to be ashamed of. Someone has to educate the masses." I maintained my smile, the same patient smile I'd worn through countless family gatherings where my career was the topic of discussion. "I appreciate your honesty," I said, taking a small sip of sparkling water. My Aunt Rose, never one to miss an opportunity to pile on, jumped in. "I was just telling my book club about this. Some people are naturally gifted for academic research, and others are more suited for basic instruction. It's not a judgment, it's just reality. Advanced research requires a certain type of mind." Leo, the graduation honoree, had been accepted to Caltech for astrophysics. He'd been the golden child of our extended family for years, and today was his moment to shine. But somehow, the conversation had shifted to analyzing my career, or what they perceived as my lack thereof. My mother, with a gentle smile that masked her true thoughts, said from across the room, "I remember when Christy was younger. She always struggled with complex concepts. Even in high school, her teachers would send notes home about how she needed extra help with advanced mathematics and science." She shook her head sadly. "We probably should have guided her towards something more attainable from the beginning." Lily seized the moment. "Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. Community college professors serve an important purpose. They help students who aren't quite ready for university-level work. You're providing a valuable service to students who are more like you were." The family members murmured their agreement. George, the corporate executive, nodded thoughtfully. "The academic world has different tiers for a reason. You have your research institutions like Princeton, Harvard, and Yale, places that push the boundaries of human knowledge. Then you have teaching institutions that focus on transmitting existing knowledge to less advanced students. Both are necessary, but they require very different skill sets." I nodded politely. "That's a fair assessment." Max leaned forward, getting more into the topic. "I've been reading about this in my organizational psychology courses. There are natural intellectual hierarchies, and fighting against them just leads to frustration and failure. The key is finding where you naturally fit and excelling there." Rose added, "And Christy has found her niche. Teaching basic astronomy to students who struggled in high school. That takes patience, not brilliance. It's a completely different skill set from conducting groundbreaking research or publishing in peer-reviewed journals." Lily stood up, clearly enjoying her role as the evening's intellectual authority. "I think what we're all trying to say, Christy, is that we're proud of you for finding your level. Not everyone can be a research scientist or a Nobel laureate. The world needs people who can explain basic concepts to struggling students. It's honest work." The condescension in the air was palpable. But I'd learned long ago that arguing with family during these moments was pointless. They'd already made up their minds about who I was and what I was capable of. My cousin, Ava, who had been quiet until then, decided to contribute. "I was talking to a professor at MIT last week. Someone who actually conducts research. He was saying how rare true academic brilliance really is. Most people who think their research material are actually just adequate teachers at best." She looked at me meaningfully. "It takes genuine intellectual gifts to contribute new knowledge to the world." George continued, "Real academic research requires not just intelligence but a specific type of analytical mind. You need to be able to see patterns that others miss, to ask questions that haven't been asked before. It's not something that can be taught or faked. You either have it or you don't." My father, who had been relatively quiet during this so-called family discussion, finally spoke up. "Christy's college professors were always very encouraging, but you know how professors are. They have to be supportive even when a student isn't really graduate school material. Sometimes the kindest thing is to help someone recognize their limitations early." The conversation went on for another 20 minutes, with various family members sharing their observations about my intellectual capacity, my career choices, and my general unsuitability for serious academic work. They talked about me as if I wasn't even there, occasionally throwing me sympathetic glances as if they were doing me a favor by helping me understand my place in the world. Lily, feeling like she was providing a public service, offered some final words. "The important thing, Christy, is that you found work that matches your abilities. Community college teaching is stable, it provides benefits, and it doesn't require the kind of intellectual heavy lifting that would just frustrate someone like you. You should be proud of being realistic about your limitations." I set down my water glass and looked around the room at these people who shared my DNA, who'd known me my entire life, and who'd apparently decided decades ago exactly who I was and what I was capable of. "You're absolutely right," I said quietly. I should definitely be realistic about my limitations. Max nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of mature perspective that will serve you well. Self-awareness is underrated in today's society. Rose leaned forward conspiratorially. And honestly, Christy, you should be grateful you found your niche before wasting years trying to pursue something beyond your reach. I've seen too many people destroy themselves trying to achieve things they simply weren't intellectually equipped to handle. Just then, my phone received a text message. It was a reminder about tomorrow morning's press conference. I glanced at it briefly and slipped it back into my pocket without comment. Lily, misinterpreting my phone check, said, "Even the timing is perfect. You're at an age where most serious researchers have already established themselves. If you were going to make groundbreaking discoveries, it would have happened by now. Look at Leo. He's 18 and already showing more promise than most graduate students." Leo, to his credit, looked uncomfortable being used as a weapon against me. But he was 18 and surrounded by adults who seemed very certain about the way the world worked, so he remained silent. George drove the point home. The academic world is brutal, Christy. It's not like teaching at a community college where everyone gets participation trophies. Real researchers are competing against the brightest minds in the world. They're publishing groundbreaking papers, securing massive grant funding, leading international collaborations. He shook his head sadly. It's just not realistic to think someone could jump from basic astronomy instruction to that level of intellectual contribution. Plus, serious academic research requires connections, institutional support, advanced degrees from prestigious universities. You can't just wake up one day and decide you're going to revolutionize human knowledge. My mother approached me with a gentle smile. "Sweetheart, we're saying all this because we love you. We don't want you to set yourself up for disappointment by having unrealistic expectations about your career. You've built a nice, stable life teaching basic astronomy to students who need extra help. That's enough. That's good." The family murmured their agreement, feeling like they'd done me a great service by helping me understand my place in the intellectual hierarchy. The conversation was starting to wind down as people began to discuss Leo's upcoming freshman year at Caltech. But then my phone rang, and that's when the world turned upside down. As the family members were still in a state of shock, Leo, who had become the family's Google researcher, continued to find more about my work. "Aunt Christy, it says here that you've published 70 papers in peer-reviewed journals, and your H-index is 80. An H-index above 50 is considered outstanding for a full career." Ava, who had been talking about the rarity of true academic brilliance, was reading my academic biography. Dr. Christy completed her PhD at Stanford at age 22, published her first breakthrough paper at 24, and was recruited by Princeton at 26. "You've been leading astrophysics research at Princeton for 7 years now." I confirmed. It was quite an adjustment, managing a research team while maintaining my own experimental work. Max was reading about the practical applications of my research. "It says here that your astrophysics breakthrough could make current space exploration technologies obsolete overnight, and every major space agency is trying to license your patents. Are you rich?" I answered diplomatically, "The university and I share the patent rights. But yes, the licensing agreements have been very favorable." Rose was reading a university press release. "It says here that you're the principal investigator on grants totaling over $300 million. That's more money than most people see in their entire lives." I knew the federal funding came with a huge responsibility. It meant that 50 scientists were depending on me to ask the right questions and design the right experiments. It meant that multiple government agencies were counting on our research to advance space exploration and national security. As I gathered my things to head to the airport for the press conference, Lily caught up with me at the front door. "Christy, I owe you an apology." "We all do. The way we talked about your career, your intelligence, we were completely wrong." I smiled at her. "You weren't wrong about everything." I am too simple for academia in a way. The best scientific insights usually come from asking very simple questions about very complex problems. She stared at me for a moment and then laughed. Even your apology acceptance is more sophisticated than anything I said all evening. As I drove towards the airport, I thought about the family gathering I'd just left. 37 people had spent the evening discovering that their understanding of reality might have been incomplete. It was a feeling I recognized from my own scientific work. That moment when you realize that everything you thought you knew was just the beginning of a much larger and more interesting story. Just as I pulled into the airport parking garage, my phone rang again. This time, it was the Nobel Committee. They wanted to discuss my research in advance of their annual deliberations. I answered on the second ring. This is Dr. Christie.